Hey, everybody, it's Tuesday, March 2nd, and that means it's time to build some wins again. This is Randy, your host of Building Wins Live, and we have an outstanding guest today, a good friend of mine for well over a year now. This is a guy that you're going to want to hear an inspiring story about his professional football career. He's a pretty darn good golfer, even if he doesn't admit it. But then again, anybody that plays golf at all is better than I. And he's going to talk about business and a near death experience that changed his life and the way he came back from that. So you're going to enjoy this conversation, I guarantee you. My friend Paul Hickie coming up in just a minute. Don't go away. Hey, there he is.
Hey, Randy.
Hi, my friend. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing real well on this Tuesday. I've been looking forward to having this chat with you for quite some time.
Well, as I myself, my friend. So first, not most importantly, but what's the weather report from Calgary, Alberta?
Well, hey, Wes, can you bring that picture up?
Oh man, I like my picture better. I don't have an actual picture, but I'm way down here in the corner. That's a little bit of difference. It's amazing what 2,500 miles will do, or 2,000, or whatever it is.
Or 5 hours in a plane will do.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been lucky the last few days. We've been having some warm weather, and the snow is receding a little bit. Hopefully, that we've had our dump for the year, but it was really quite cold a couple of weeks ago for a long period of time, and the opportunity for us to get out of doors was limited. We're talking 40 below zero kind of cold, and that's not good.
No, that's almost chilly. That's getting right there. Well, hey, so when does it actually get warm in Calgary? I mean, warm as in, say, 70s at least in Fahrenheit.
I think we get a day of that sometime in late July, early August.
Whew. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, from being up in the UP, you get some chilly weather there, and I chuckled every time I saw you walking your route, and you were saying it was cold, and I'm going, man, dude doesn't know what cold is. Come on up to Canada and see us. But now you're soft. You're living half the year in Florida and living life for Riley down there, sitting around the lanai and having cocktails.
Well, all I know is I had a good buddy of mine I talked to yesterday from Kentucky, and I sent him a screenshot of my phone. I was out for a walk, and it was feel like 91. And he goes, hot, just stupid hot, too stupid hot. And I go, yeah, but in Michigan this time of year, it's too stupid cold. So, it's all perspective, right?
Well, it is. And I guess it's all mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. And
true that.
I got that saying from a teammate of mine. The first, when I was in Edmonton playing, the guy's name was Dan Kepley. He's an all-star linebacker. He went to East Carolina, I believe, and didn't make the NFL because he was undersized, but he came up here with a heart like a lion, and he was a man to be reckoned with, and he says anything in life is mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
There you go. Well, so Paul, before we get started, you kind of touched on a couple things. I touched on a couple things, but as is sort of normal for me, give me a 2, 3, 4 minutes, whatever you want. Who is Paul Hickie? Introduce yourself officially.
Sure. Well, who am I? Well, I'm a former professional athlete. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a grandfather. I'm a guy who used to play a lot of hockey. We'll get into why I don't now. Love golf. Absolutely love it. Was a certified tennis professional, level 3 CTSA or CT Canadian Tennis Association for a number of years. Athletics were a huge part of who I was and what I was about, and it shaped my abilities to be successful in a number of different fields in business when I was done my football career. So I've had a lot of different rides on some different merry-go-rounds throughout business, from selling beer, which would be fun down in Naples, but at least drinkable, to things like commercial finance. And ultimately, my last role was a vice president of sales for a multidisciplined organization in the oil and gas and resource services sector in Western Canada. So I've been a jack of all trades. I'm not going to say I was a master of any, but I was able to utilize a number of strengths that I developed over time to be successful in a number of different fields.
Nice. So let's start out with with football. So you were a hell of a football player in high school. Then went on to play, if I'm not mistaken, University of Saskatchewan. Boy, I got that said right. That's a hard word. That is a mouthful.
That's a mouthful. There's no doubt.
And I know you were an all-star there. You were a punter for sure, kicker also, maybe a little bit. What else did you do? Give us a little bit of your football.
Well, yeah, I was a guy who had a lot of success being able to punt, pass, and kick, and I learned to do that on the street in my neighborhood when I was growing up in Saskatoon, and parlayed that into being a national runner-up in the punt, pass, and kick in 1973, and where I went from that was the ability to play high school football at a very high level, and being almost, from what I understood, recruited or viewed in my senior year at high school by teams in the Canadian Football League. And I went to the University of Saskatchewan, where I was an all-Canadian, Western Conference All-Star. They didn't have all-Canadian kickers and punters at that time. So I was awarded for skill as best as the organization would allow back then, and was drafted to play in the CFL by the Edmonton and Eskimo Football Club. They've now since changed their name and got woke on us, but it's no different than the Washington football team. Long and short of it is I had a brief career in the CFL, a couple of opportunities to play in try out in the NFL, one with New England and one with the Los Angeles Raiders, and then came back from that expecting our first child, and decided I needed to get a job. So football was a huge part of who I was. I played
there you are.
a number. Yeah.
Tell us about this game. Do you remember this game?
Yeah, I do. That was in 1983. Throw that back up, Wes. The Eskimos were playing the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and the guy who was making sure I kicked the football was a linebacker out of Alabama, played for the Crimson Tide, and his name was Ben Zambiazzi. And Ben was probably one of the toughest guys I had ever met in my career. And we were playing in Hamilton. It was my first regular season game, and Ben introduced himself to me a couple of times. And how he did that was he let me kick the football, and I was watching the ball and attempting to be the safety and last man. And I couldn't be contacted until I crossed the line of scrimmage, and Ben introduced himself to me a couple of times after I crossed the line of scrimmage, and found a way to get my football helmet from one side of my face to the other. It was interesting.
Yeah, that's a great story. So that was your first game right there. That picture.
That game? No, that was midway through the season.
Okay. Gotcha.
That was in Edmonton. There were 60,000 people that's nothing for some of your stadiums down there, but our stadium in Edmonton held 60,000, and we had typically 60,000 people at our home games. That game itself, Warren Moon set a completion percentage record and a yardage record because we just absolutely tore up the Hamilton team when they came to our ball yard.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, That's
So
interesting. So
I had the pleasure of playing with some really, really great people and super football players. I mentioned Danny Capley, Warren Moon being a teammate of mine before he went down to Houston and had a career down in the United States in the NFL. Had a 5-year run with the Eskimos, and during those 5 years, they won. The Eskimos were consecutive Grey Cup champions, which is the equivalent of our Super Bowl. So it was a dynasty program that I was involved in, and it was, an opportunity for putting it into perspective. Now, if you were to go to as a 21-year-old kid, graduating and being drafted to a program, if you were going to say the New England Patriots or one of those dynasties in the NFL, that's what we had in Edmonton. Unfortunately, came a year too late. We didn't win the Grey Cup in '83, but it was still a great experience nonetheless. And it taught me a lot about life in terms of growing up, because I had to grow up in an awful hurry.
sure. So football ended. You played golf during college, during the football days, but then you had time to play a little more golf. And obviously, I did not realize, and we've been friends now for quite some time, and I guess I don't know that we talked about your tennis career, but being a tennis pro at any level, that's pretty impressive also. I mean, I don't think they hand those out to just everybody.
Well, no, you kind of got to earn it. And there's
Yeah.
some I guess qualifications that you need to obtain, as well as playing credentials that they test skill, and it was more not a playing professional, but more a teaching and coaching, typically of young kids, and did that from my my college days. So
Okay.
yeah.
So obviously sports was a big part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went on, was in business for a while.
Yeah.
And so then, unless there's something else I want to talk about, we'll probably go back to some sports. As it probably, I know in conversation that you and I have had numerous times in the past, there was a tough day came for you in your life. And
Well,
tell us about that.
well, the tough decade began actually with well, the mid decade. Is that where you want to go, or?
Yeah, I think we've got the story. Obviously, you were an athlete, and
Yeah.
you learned a lot from football, a lot from tennis, a lot from being a golfer. But then you had a pretty tragic event happen in your life, one that you didn't expect or anticipate, and one
Sure.
that could happen to any of us, right? At a moment's notice. You talk about a blink of an eye, right? And
Well, yeah, we can go, talk about the blink of an eye moment, and certainly get into a little bit of that, and why it's been a significant part of my daily life since then. I was riding high. I was very chosen to be the vice president of a company that I thought very highly of, and was doing some pretty good things with them, building some wins for them in the business community here in Calgary in a different way than they were used to, and they were excited about that. And that was great. Went on a vacation with my wife and a couple of other couples down to Loreto, Mexico for a week. Sat on the beach, did some swimming with rays and a number of other fish, and some snorkeling, things like that. Like I said, sat on the beach and caught some sandfly bites, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. The nature of sitting on the beach, sometimes that happens, and you know that from where you are. But we came back to Calgary after our time in Loreto, and I immediately was engaged in a hockey tournament for Alzheimer's with the NHL alumni. So I began a weekend of hockey, and enjoyed playing some high-level hockey with some old-time NHLers. And when that was done, went to a meeting up in Fort McMurray, followed by a week in Vegas. And when I came back from Vegas, I was feeling extremely flu-like. And I didn't think anything of it because all of the symptoms that I had presented as, well, you've just got the flu. It was body aches and pains and chills and fevers and all of those things that you would associate with it. And again, I thought, okay, this is something that I've had before. I'm not going to worry about it. And a number of days went by and I'm not feeling any better. And in fact, I'm looking like hell. And my boss goes, go to the hospital, deal with what you got to deal with, because you're not looking well, you're not feeling well. So what had happened was the doctor sent me there with with the requirement to get some lab work and some x-rays done. And that happened. I got the x-rays done, the lab work done, and communications with the physician said, nothing's wrong with your lungs, because they thought there was some pneumonia. But the following Monday, I was told to get to a hospital because my kidneys were failing. That was a very critical point and a wake-up call to me that something serious was wrong. So I went to the hospital. They got them restarted. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. They gave me an urgent referral to a internal medicine guy that I saw 2 days later, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. He thought it was either dengue fever or malaria, and sent me on my way because he thought it would pass in 10 days, and if it didn't pass, come back and see him. And the following morning is when I had the stroke. And challenge with that was, it was a normal day. I was trying to get ready for a work day, and I could not leave the bathroom simply because when I was attempting to get ready in the morning, I had the stroke and was paralyzed on my left side.
Wow. That is a challenging time, scary time.
And no doubt. And I was blessed to have my wife still at home, and my daughter, who was a kinesiologist or studying kinesiology, who knew exactly what to do. And they could see that there was something significantly wrong. In Canada, we only use the FAST designation, or which is, look for the signs of a stroke, and F is face, and A is arm weakness, and speech, S is speech, and T is time to call 911. Well, they didn't need to do much. All they did was call 911 because they could see that my face was drooping, my speech was slightly affected, I couldn't move my arm, and they knew what was going on. So wow. The medical people were astounding in terms of getting me into the Foothills Hospital and dealing with the care that was required at that time. There was a new clot busting drug that was in the marketplace. Unfortunately, I wasn't a candidate for it because of the damage that already had happened on my that managed my left side motor. There would be no advantage to throwing that drug into my system. So they just said, okay, let's begin the process of working from here. But first of all, they had to figure out what the other thing was wrong, or what caused the stroke. And as they were able to do those tests and figuring what was there, what they determined was the blood clot was brought about by a bacterial infection that brought on endocarditis. And the endocarditis took out my aortic valve and caused a blood clot, and the blood clot went into my brain. And that, in a nutshell, is what happened. But it was all caused by me not necessarily adhering to my body and telling what it was telling me to do. I was someone who was able to fight things off in the past, but I would say that I kind of ignored where this was at and the gravity of the whole thing, and it eventually almost cost me my life.
So that's interesting. So what you just said. So Paul, you recognized a few days prior to this that this was. If you think back about it now, you recognize it. I think this might be more than the flu, but you just didn't want to recognize it, or you didn't want to deal with it, or you just hoped it'd go away by itself. Yeah, it sounds like you're saying you sort of, if you look back on it,
No,
there might have been
hindsight's always 2020, right? And
yep.
I think that had I paid more attention to, and I think that as guys, we tend to want to have the bravado of fight through this and soldier on, right? And those
Right.
are some of the things around persistence and perseverance and those aspects from my sport days that said to me, carry on. You've
Right.
fought through things like this before. You should be able to do it again. And I guess I was. I've been told I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer a couple of times, and I think I could have stayed in the hospital. That if I would have stayed in the hospital when I got my kidneys restarted, they likely would have been able to deal with not having a stroke. But I know that I would have lost my aortic valve and would have had to have had surgery. So, that's hindsight. The thing about hindsight is it doesn't, if you keep looking behind to try and rationalize what had happened and how it happened, you never have an opportunity to move forward from it. So the choice or the biggest aspect in my recovery from this whole thing, Randy, was making a choice to do two things: live in the positive and accept what happened, because you can't change it. So once I accepted what happened, doesn't mean I had to like it,
Right.
but I had to accept that my life was changed as a result of this event. And some would say that I've lost a lot, and to them I would say you're correct. But what this event has allowed me to do is gain a greater perspective of the value of life and health and family and friends and work, and the gratitude that I need to show on a daily basis to deal with that salad that we call life, and how we can turn it into something special. And was the big bouquet that I received in terms of rationalization, that you need to be grateful to move forward. You need to accept what comes your way. Again, you don't have to like it, but if you accept it, you can find a path to move forward. And that's been key and critical in how I've been able to move forward, to resume my role at La Prairie, and continue in that role for another 3 years before the economy caught us and they had to change their executive team, or chose to change their executive team and move on.
Okay. Well, that's, and really what you just talked about is so huge for all of us, because everybody is going to have those moments in life. Some, not as severe as this one was, but the difference that I took from that I think everybody can take is you looked at it, it happened. I can't change it. I didn't even have to like it, as you said, but you can either feel sorry for yourself and think about things that you might have lost, but instead you thought about, okay, I'm alive, right? I can move on with my family and my kids and a career and enjoy life. And so it's what we've talked about this before, I think, but it in everything in life, whatever little things kind of blast you in the head sometimes, you look forward, right? You just got to look forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something as critically life-changing as what happened to me, but you need to accept the things that come your way. And I think that, you know, the biggest lessons that we as business people have is you're not going to win every time, and you need to accept the fact that those are going to be situations that are going to enter into your community of either customers or prospects or activities that allow you to build a business, and there's going to be setbacks along the way. But if you have a plan and you stay focused with that plan and compete along the path of that plan, you control what you can control, you be nimble to be able to pivot around the nature of those challenges, like we've all experienced in the last year, you'll be better prepared to be successful come what may, right? So
Right.
I think it's allowed me to find the silver lining in this stroke cloud by being someone that is nimble enough to know what's going on, and astute enough to be able to take those lessons from that event, modify what and who and the proposed outcomes that I need to achieve, and still be successful as a result.
That's awesome. So I know there's another phase, and I think what we'll do, if it's okay with you, Paul, is I know you like to chat about, and we've talked about bringing some awareness, and a lot of this
Sure.
is there's awareness to what happened, what can happen, what you should look for, and you've been very actively involved with the Heart and Stroke Associations. I might get some of that wrong, but so do you have time to stay on and chat a little bit more specifically
Yeah.
about your recovery, what it was like, what you went through, and probably even more importantly, your activities, because I think you can speak to a lot of folks that can look at you
Sure.
and go, okay, if I ever see myself in this situation or a family member in this situation, there's some things we ought to all know, right? Because to me, the only worst thing is to have something happen, but to look back and go, you know, I could have listened to somebody like Paul Hickie and said, geez, if I'd only paid attention to somebody when the opportunity's there, I might have made a better decision, right, for myself or a family or a loved one or a friend, a person at the grocery store, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. You know, there's a lot that we can learn from you. So if you've got a few minutes,
Absolutely.
So what I think we'll do, anything else though, before when we come back on our added wins, which we'll release in a couple of days, we're going to talk more about your journey through this at the end and coming back. Anything else you want to, you know, before we close out the live, anything else you want to bring up from a football days, from a business days? Because I think we'll talk a little more of the heart and stroke involvement, maybe in the added wins, if that's okay.
Well, sure. You know, from the perspective of I guess I've been very grateful in my athletic life to be able to do a lot of things at very high levels. I made it to the pinnacle of professional football, playing in the CFL and with opportunities to play in the NFL. That's not lost on me. The limited activities or limited access a lot of people have to those arenas. And with that came a lot of hard work and dedication and things that go with it, you know, in terms of sacrifice and you know, the nature of football. It was a lot of fun. I wouldn't give those days up for anything. That being said, the game of football and the abilities to play sports certainly prepared me for life in a number of different ways. And if we can probably talk a little bit more about that too. But
Right.
Randy, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share my story this
Well,
morning.
of course.
And hopefully someone can gain some benefit, like you said, whether it's as a care provider or someone that may be on the road to improving their health, or needs to improve their health so they don't go through what I did. So,
Exactly.
but yeah, I'll be happy to stay on and have a discussion.
Perfect.
But
Well, real quick,
I'll let you wind her down.
Well, real quick before you go, I know there's hey Wes, if you could pop, I know there's a couple of comments that was come through a minute ago, and I wanted to see if there's something there that maybe we should address with Paul real quick. Yeah, so my buddy Barry, a good friend of mine, great reminders and story of perseverance. What do you think about that, Paul?
Well, absolutely. I mean, persevering through some hardship, like learning to walk again, was probably the most difficult thing that I was faced with. And, it took me about 2.5 months to figure that out. So
can't imagine.
Let's wrap it up, Randy. Reason being is I'm an old guy with a lot of water that I've consumed. So
you got it. I could do so. That's it. Wes will put you back in the green room. We'll get to better and chat in a minute. But Paul, thank you very much for being on live today, and we're gonna catch up in a couple minutes and add to this. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. So, folks, there you have Paul Hickie, from high school athlete, college athlete, professional athlete, and then hit a tragedy in his life, and he persevered and he came back. I mean, it's a big story. I've known Paul for about a year now, and Paul's become a really, really good friend. And I really knew that this is a guy that you'd appreciate his story. You'd appreciate hearing about his football career a little bit, but Paul's real story goes way beyond football. It goes beyond football by a long shot. It's persevering. It's how he stood up to issues that came and addressed them, and is still living a really, really nice life up in Calgary. A little cold for me, but that's okay. But so we're going to wrap it up here in a second. Look for Friday for you're going to love this added wins. It's important. I don't know if you'll love it as much as it's important. It's important to be aware of these things. We don't always like to talk about things that maybe are scary or a little bad, but boy, it's better to talk about and know if something comes up, right, than to not have known. So with that said, for now, we're going to wrap up, but I want to remind you, I've got another live this week, a special edition on Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, and anybody that's in the metal roofing industry at all, and especially if you're in the roll forming industry, you all know my friend Ben Smith with Bradbury Equipment, Bradbury Machine, I think he goes by technically. There's Ben. Ben is the I call him a guru of the metal roll forming world. Bradbury, as most of you know that are in this industry, is the, I don't even say the Cadillac, probably the Mercedes Benz of the roll forming world. And to give you an idea how well respected Ben Smith is, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, we had scheduled to grab lunch someplace in some trade show. And I went by the booth like 5 times and finally decided to do it later because there are people literally lining up waiting to talk to Ben Smith. So you're going to enjoy a conversation with Ben about the roll forming industry, where we've been, where we're going, that kind of thing. So that's this Thursday, 12 noon Eastern on Building Winds Live Special Edition. And then we've got next Tuesday, a really good friend of mine, a fellow Megamind brother, George Henderson. George is there as my brother. George is I can't say too much because I mean he might have a contract on me. George is a cyber security expert. He lives in the general DC area and heavily involved in cybersecurity. And I thought George would be somebody good to chat with, because all of our businesses, we're doing more working from remote, right? We have people, accountants working from home. We have salespeople working from home. We have a lot of stuff going back and forth. And I think, and as George and I talk often, many times about our favorite bourbon or something else, but we have chatted about the fact that that cybersecurity can affect all of us personally, small business, big business, it doesn't matter. George's a great guy. You're going to enjoy him. So that's next week on Building Wins Live, our regular edition, 12 noon Eastern. And that's it for today. So remember, I think these words that I like to use, and I believe them, with my friend Paul Hickie today, very applicable. You only have one life, so live it, love it, and own it. And make today your best day ever. Till tomorrow. Cheers, y'all, and thanks for coming by.